tenía mucho miedo y no quería vivir más en ese momento.
Pablo Escobar, the leader of the Medellin Cartel, a billionaire drug trafficker whose influence stretched across continents and whose brutality reshaped an entire nation. To some, he was a ruthless criminal responsible for thousands of deaths. To others, particularly in Medellin's poorer communities, he was remembered as a man who built homes, handed out money, and positioned himself as someone willing to help where the government had failed. But on December 2, 1993, after months in hiding, Escobar's story came to an abrupt end. Tracked to a residential neighborhood in Medellin, he was shot and killed during a rooftop confrontation with Colombian authorities. For many Colombians, his death represented something close to relief. For the government, it was a victory. For his enemies, overdue justice. But for the people closest to Pablo Escobar, it marked the beginning of something far more complicated. Because while the world focused on the fall of the kingpin, another story was unfolding quietly behind the scenes. The story of the woman who had spent years beside him, his wife, the mother of his children. A woman who would spend the next decades trying to escape a name the world refused to forget. For years, she remained almost completely silent. Then, eventually, she began telling her story. And what emerged was not the portrait of luxury and power many expected. It was something far more unsettling. A story about fear, control, isolation, and the psychological cost of living beside one of the most dangerous men in modern history. Before Pablo Escobar became Pablo Escobar. Long before private armies and billion-dollar drug operations, there was a neighborhood called La Paz in Medellin. It was here that a young girl named Maria Victoria Henao, later known to the world as Tata Escobar, first met Pablo. She was 13. He was already an adult. At the time, Pablo had not yet become the most feared criminal in Colombia. To neighbors, he was charismatic, ambitious, a young man who appeared unusually confident for someone from modest beginnings. According to people who knew them, Pablo pursued her persistently. Gifts, attention, promises. The kind of attention that, for someone so young, could feel overwhelming. Looking back decades later, Tata would describe herself as naive, too young to understand the imbalance in the relationship, too inexperienced to fully grasp the consequences of becoming involved with someone older, more dominant and increasingly controlling. To outsiders, it may have looked romantic, a teenage love story. But memory has a way of changing shape over time, especially when viewed through experience. At 15, Tata ran away from home to marry him. She later described it as an act driven by emotion and idealism, a belief that love could create stability. Life inside the Escobar household. By the 1980s, Pablo Escobar had become one of the richest and most wanted men in the world. Money flowed faster than it could be counted. Properties expanded. Security intensified. And yet, according to Tata, life inside the household often felt strangely unstable. Pablo was rarely still. He moved constantly. Business trips stretched into disappearances. Safe houses became normal. Entire routines changed overnight depending on who was threatening him or who he believed might betray him. Living with Pablo Escobar meant adapting to unpredictability. One day there was calm, the next complete panic. Tata later described long nights waiting for him to return home, often with no idea where he was or when he would come back. Cruelty and care begin to exist side by side. The story she waited decades to tell. For much of her life, Tata remained silent about parts of her relationship that deeply affected her. Then, decades later, she began speaking openly about experiences from her teenage years that she said had left lasting emotional scars. She described feeling confused, too young to understand what was happening, too inexperienced to process relationships, sexuality, or power in the way an adult might. There were moments, she later admitted, that she struggled to reconcile even years afterward. Experiences she carried privately for more than 4 decades before finally discussing them with her children. When violence becomes routine. As Escobar's war with the Colombian government intensified, daily life for the family became increasingly dangerous. One of the clearest examples came with the bombing of the Monaco building in Medellin, one of Escobar's residential strongholds. The explosion was devastating, a message unmistakably delivered. No one connected to Pablo Escobar was untouchable. Not his allies, not his family, not even his children. Tata later described the psychological impact of constantly preparing for danger. Police raids became frequent. Security concerns shaped everyday decisions. Even moments that should have felt ordinary became overshadowed by risk. Marriage under pressure. For years, Tata remained publicly loyal to Pablo, but privately the relationship was deteriorating. Infidelity had become impossible to ignore. Rumors turned into confirmations. Other relationships emerged. And eventually, according to her account, she reached a breaking point. She confronted him. She considered leaving, not the family, but the marriage. Yet, separating from someone like Pablo Escobar carried consequences beyond heartbreak. Pablo, by many accounts, was intensely possessive, jealous, emotionally persuasive, and capable of regaining control through promises and grand gestures, letters, flowers, declarations of loyalty. At times, Tata later reflected she felt trapped inside a cycle she no longer understood. The collapse of an empire. Everything changed after 1990. As pressure intensified, Escobar's world became smaller, more paranoid, more dangerous. Government forces closed in. Rival cartels formed alliances. American agencies increased involvement. And hiding became a way of life. At one point, Tata recalled fleeing while pregnant, traveling under extraordinary circumstances, simply because Pablo believed danger was approaching. There was little explanation, only instructions. Go here, stay there, wait. Movement replaced stability. Uncertainty replaced planning. And increasingly, even family life revolved around survival. Life after Pablo. But death did not bring peace. If anything, it introduced a different kind of fear. Retaliation remained a concern. The family's future was uncertain. Eventually, Tata and her children left Colombia and rebuilt their lives in Argentina under new identities. Pablo Escobar's wife became Maria Isabel Santos, a new name for a life that could never fully escape the old one. She later described living with constant anxiety. Passing police officers brought fear. Public spaces felt unpredictable. Recognition always seemed possible. And no matter how much distance existed between her and Colombia, Pablo's name remained unavoidable. Years later, authorities would continue investigating the family over allegations tied to money laundering. Public suspicion followed them. The assumption that somehow, somewhere, hidden wealth must still exist. The ghost of Pablo Escobar. Years later, Tata revealed something deeply personal. In more than 25 years after Pablo's death, she said she had dreamed about him only once. In the dream, there was no violence, no gunfire, no fear, only an embrace. And then it ended. Perhaps that memory says something larger about the contradictions of loving someone like Pablo Escobar. History remembers Pablo Escobar as many things: a criminal, a kingpin, a symbol of excess and destruction. But for the woman who spent years beside him, he remained something harder to define. A husband, a source of fear, a protector, a destroyer, and ultimately, a ghost she could never fully escape. And perhaps that is the story Tata Escobar finally wanted people to understand. That surviving Pablo Escobar did not begin the day he died. In many ways, it started long before. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story about Pablo Escobar and the hidden life of his wife, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more dark crime documentaries.